She forgot the sound of her own name, forgot how to braid her hair the way her mother once showed her, forgot the street she grew up on, the smell of Sunday morning tamales, the Spanish lullabies her grandfather used to sing while strumming that old guitar. She was only 17, but memories, ones most people keep forever, had already begun to slip through their fingers, not all at once, but little by little, like sand leaving the palm. Quietly, doctors gave it a name, a rare neurodegenerative condition, cruel, unpredictable, a slow unraveling of the self. At school, she sat alone. At home, she searched her own face in the mirror like it belonged to someone else. She couldn't remember her childhood, but she could feel its absence. And that might have been the worst part. Until one day, someone played a song, an old one she didn't remember learning, didn't remember loving, and suddenly she was singing, word for word, note for note, as if the melody had been holding her all along. Because sometimes, when memory fails, music remembers. And when she sang again, her childhood didn't just come back, she did too. Maya Navarro was the kind of girl who left trails of song wherever she went. She sang while brushing her teeth, while tying her sneakers, while riding her bike through the narrow streets of her neighborhood in East LA. Her voice wasn't perfect, but it was hers and it was full of light. Her family called her Colibri, little hummingbird, always moving, always humming, always remembering the lyrics to songs no one else could. But around age 12, something started changing. First, it was simple things. Where are my keys? Turned into, where do we keep the keys again? Homework left unfinished, a forgotten lunch, misplaced shoes in the freezer. They laughed it off at first, growing pains, teenage distraction. But the gaps widened. One day, she forgot how to sign her name. The next, she asked what grade she was in. Then, she didn't recognize her cousin at a birthday party, the one she used to braid friendship bracelets with every weekend. Doctors ran tests, scans, blood work, neuro evaluations. And then the unthinkable, a rare, early onset neurodegenerative disorder, not Alzheimer's, not exactly dementia, but something that looked and felt just as cruel. Her mother cried quietly in the hallway. Her father researched treatments until sunrise. Her grandfather started visiting every afternoon, whether invited or not. But Maya, she just kept forgetting. She forgot the names of her childhood toys, forgot how to count to 10 in Spanish, forgot her favorite song, the one she once made her grandfather play 5 times in a row. And worst of all, she started to forget herself. She stopped singing, stopped making eye contact, stopped finishing her sentences because she couldn't trust where they'd end. At school, she drifted, not because she didn't care, but because she didn't know where to land. Friends slowly faded, teachers lowered expectations, people stopped asking her what she wanted to be when she grew up. And in the quiet spaces of her room, Maya sometimes whispered the same question to herself. What if I grow up and I'm no one I remember? Her family filled the house with photos, labels, sticky notes on every cabinet. But still, the forgetting moved faster. It was like watching a candle burn backwards. The light was still flickering, but the wax was vanishing. What they didn't know yet, what she didn't know, was that not everything had slipped away. Something was still holding on, waiting to be heard. And it sounded like a song. Her grandfather, Papa Luis, never missed a Sunday. Every week, without fail, he'd climb the front steps with his guitar in one hand and a plastic bag of pan dolce in the other. He smelled like cedar, aftershave, and the faintest trace of nostalgia. Maya didn't always recognize him anymore. Sometimes she'd smile politely and say hi, like he was a neighbor. Sometimes she'd ask his name twice in 10 minutes. And once, she looked him straight in the eyes and asked, "Are you my real grandpa or just a nice one?" He laughed, softly, but that night he cried in his truck before driving home. Still, he kept coming. Still, he kept playing. Every time he visited, he'd pull out his old worn guitar, the one with the scratched body and fading sticker on the back. He'd sit in the same chair, tuned it by ear, and play the songs of her childhood. Sometimes rancheras, sometimes lullabies, sometimes the silly tune he made up when she was 5 that only had 4 chords and no real ending. Maya would listen, but her eyes didn't light up the way they used to. She didn't dance, she didn't sing along, she just sat quietly, like the music was reaching for her, but couldn't find a way in. Until one afternoon, when the sky outside was soft with clouds and the house smelled faintly of cinnamon and silence, Papa Luis strummed a song he hadn't played in years. Luna de Octubre, a lullaby his own mother used to sing to him. He hadn't planned to play it, it just came out. His fingers found it the way an old man finds his way home in the dark, and something in the air shifted. Maya's eyes lifted, just a little. She blinked like she was waking up from a very long nap. Then her lips moved. At first it was a whisper, a syllable, then another until she was singing, not searching, not guessing, remembering, word for word, note for note, her voice rising like something that had been buried but never lost. She didn't know the year, she didn't know the name of her school, but she knew that song. She knew where to breathe, where to pause, when to hum. And as her voice filled the living room, her mother stood frozen in the hallway, hand over her mouth, tears tracing the outline of disbelief. Papa Luis didn't stop strumming, didn't dare interrupt the moment. His hands kept moving, even as his eyes blurred, because in that moment, she wasn't the girl who forgot, she was Maya, the girl who danced barefoot in the kitchen, the girl who begged for one more song before bedtime, the girl who remembered, if only for 2.5 minutes, exactly who she was. That song wouldn't bring back every memory, but it would change everything that came next, because now they knew. There was still music inside her, and the music remembered. After that moment, after the song, nothing went back to normal. But something changed. They couldn't explain it. Not the doctors, not the therapists, not even Papa Luis. But Maya had sung. She had remembered. And that meant there was something still holding on. Some thread deep inside her that the forgetting couldn't touch. So they followed the thread. Her mother downloaded every song Maya had ever loved, childhood playlists, old voice memos, recordings from birthday parties, backyard dances, school recitals. Papa Luis recorded new versions of every lullaby he had ever played for her, slower, softer, as if tucking each one into the folds of her fading memory like folded love notes. They placed a speaker by her bed, played instrumental music during meals, and quietly, they began to witness something no scan could track. Maya still forgot things. She forgot her backpack, forgot to eat lunch, forgot how to use the microwave. But when the music played, she remembered. She remembered feelings. She remembered movement. She remembered the language of rhythm. Her fingers would tap along before her mind caught up. Her feet would sway before she realized she was standing, and sometimes, on good days, she would hum before she even knew the melody had returned. It was like the songs lived in a room deeper than memory, a room untouched by loss, a room where Maya still existed, whole, playful, alive. Her therapist called it musical anchoring. They explained how music triggers multiple parts of the brain, including the ones most resistant to degeneration. But for her family, it didn't matter what it was called, because for the first time in years, they weren't chasing who Maya used to be. They were meeting who she still was. They stopped measuring progress in test scores and started measuring it in moments. Like when Maya sang along to a commercial jingle she hadn't heard in years, or when she laughed in the middle of a song, remembering some dance move Papa Luis once made up in the kitchen, or when she gently corrected her mom's off-key humming. Those moments didn't fix the diagnosis, they didn't reverse the forgetting, but they reminded everyone that joy didn't have to wait for full memory to return. It could exist now. And what began as a thread to hold on to Maya's past soon became a bridge to her future, a bridge she would one day help others cross too. By the time Maya turned 17, she no longer remembered her childhood the way most people do. In clear timelines, in photo albums, in stories retold over the dinner table, her memories were more like scattered puzzle pieces. She never knew which one would show up on any given day. But she had something even more powerful than a complete picture. She had rhythm, she had music, and she had presence. She began volunteering at a local community center that served neurodivergent youth, kids with autism, teens with cognitive disabilities, others like her who had diagnoses that didn't quite fit in boxes. At first, she just observed, sat in the back, watched the others sway, stim, rock, or isolate. But then one afternoon, someone wheeled in an old acoustic guitar and set it in her lap. And Maya, without thinking, played a C chord, then a G, then an E minor. The kids turned. One clapped, one hummed, one rocked in time, and something began. She didn't call it music therapy. She didn't call herself a leader. But slowly she became both. She created rhythm circles every Wednesday afternoon. No expectations, no pressure, just sound. Some kids sang, some tapped spoons against their legs, some just closed their eyes and felt. But something always shifted, a tension released, a wall lowered, because Maya wasn't just offering music, she was offering understanding, not clinical, but lived. One boy, 7 years old, nonverbal, started tapping his foot every time Maya played a specific lullaby. Another girl, 15, who had never made eye contact in group, looked up when Maya sang the bridge of Yellow by Coldplay. These weren't breakthroughs, they were invitations. Invitations to feel safe, to connect, to exist without explanation. And Maya? She didn't always remember their names, didn't always remember the chords, but she remembered how they responded, how they lit up, how they reached back. The very thing she once feared losing, her sense of self, was now the thing she was giving away to help others find theirs. And through this quiet ripple of connection, Maya's story began to echo, not just through chords and lyrics, but through the hearts of everyone she played for. Ask the people who know Maya, not just as a girl with a diagnosis, but as a girl with a presence. And they'll tell you what science can't. That sometimes healing isn't about remembering everything, it's about being felt. Papa Luis, her grandfather. He was the first to lose her in pieces and the first to feel her come back in song. Papa Louis shares, "There were days she looked at me like I was a stranger, but she never forgot how to find the first chord. The music became our bridge, even when she forgot the words. She remembered the love." Elena, her mother, she had mourned her daughter in advance and then witnessed her rise again. Elena reflects, "For a while I thought I was watching her disappear, like someone slowly walking into fog. But when she sang that day with her grandfather, I realized she wasn't gone. She was just waiting to be reached differently, and music reached her when nothing else could." Layla, a girl from Rhythm Circle. Layla rarely spoke in group sessions, but Maya's presence became a kind of permission. Layla whispers, "Maya doesn't make you talk, she just plays. And when she plays, I feel calm, like maybe I don't have to explain everything." Mateo, youth counselor at the center. He watched Maya transform from student to leader without even realizing it herself. Mateo says, "You can teach rhythm, you can even teach empathy, but what Maya brings, that can't be taught. She doesn't lead with knowledge, she leads with feeling. And these kids, they feel her. They trust her in ways they don't trust anyone else. They all speak different words from different places, but they echo the same truth. That Maya's story isn't about memory lost, it's about connection found. Through strings, through rhythm, through presence, and what Maya couldn't always remember with her mind, she gave back fully with her heart. Maya still forgets things. Sometimes she forgets the day of the week. Sometimes she forgets what year it is. And sometimes she forgets her own birthday. But the music never forgets her. It meets her exactly where she is. Whether she's lucid or lost, whether she knows who's in the room, or just remembers the sound of someone who loves her. There are days when the forgetting feels heavy, when conversations slip like water through her hands, when she stares at a photograph and can't place the smiling girl in the frame, but then someone plays a song, and her eyes soften, her fingers tap, her lips part, and for a moment, the world folds itself into something she recognizes. Because memory isn't always a timeline, it's not always made of facts, names, or numbers. Sometimes it's a vibration, a color, a pattern of sound that wraps around you and reminds you, you're still here. Maya's life won't follow a traditional map. There's no cure, no straight line, just moments, fleeting and full. But within those moments, she teaches something most people never learn, that we are not only what we remember, we are what we give, what we feel, what echoes through others, even after we forget. And when Maya closes her eyes and hums the first line of a song, even if she doesn't remember the second, the music steps in, takes her hand, and walks her home. We all forget things. Sometimes it's small, a name, a date, a detail lost in the rush of life. But sometimes forgetting feels bigger, heavier, like watching parts of who we are slowly drift out of reach. Maya's story reminds us that even when memories fade, something deeper can remain. A feeling, a rhythm, a thread woven through the sound of someone who never stopped loving you. A song that remembers when you can't. She may not recall every moment of her childhood, but in the chorus of a lullaby, in the strum of a guitar, in the shared hum of others joining in, she finds herself again, not as she was, but as she still is, whole, present, and deeply, unmistakably seen. If this story moves something in you, leave a comment below for someone whose music still lives in your bones. someone who reminds you who you are when you begin to forget. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Able in Every Way for more true stories of memory, love, loss, and the miracles that live between the notes. Because even when the mind lets go, the heart remembers, and sometimes that's enough.